Once upon a time, there was a girl who grew up in a wetland full of bogs. That was the land she deeply belonged to. People built a big, beautiful city right on that bog, and the girl almost forgot that the wetland was just out there behind the city walls. She didn't have the chance to meet any marsh animal or plant, and furthermore, children were told not to go out of the city walls to the swamps because it was too dangerous. So she lived surrounded by bricks and stone and millions of people who seemed to have forgotten the marshland they all had once come from. But there was another place far, far north where people so much loved the land full of bogs that they named their country Suomi, meaning land of the swamp. When the girl from the grey city came to the land of the swamp, this was the dwelling where her soul was reborn. Gorgeous lands covered with swamps with endless duckboards, thousands of lakes, forests and fields, and above all the rocks and cliffs. All of this were a playground for the children of that land, who were named after things of nature itself. Imagine names such as Rumi, which means snow, Pilvi, cloud, Sade, rain, Usva, a white fog rising above the bog. She began going to the forest alone. The Arctic wind, the northern lights dance, the freezing cold and the summertime rain. Her thoughts were so loud in the silence of that wonderland. That girl desired to stay. Who was she? Well, that girl was me. My name is Nadia and I live in the capital of the Finnish Lapland, Rovaniemi. It has been a dream of mine for a long time to make natural soaps with plants collected from the wild. I created and tested many recipes and even made a soap using Arctic snow with peared moss, called Naava in Finnish. Lots of my attempts were only experimental, since some ingredients such as Naava cannot be collected without a special permission. Fortunately, many of nature's treasures are allowed to be picked freely by everyone. Here in Finland, there is a list of things one can or cannot do while in nature. These policies are commonly called as everyman's rights. Shortly, soaps are saponified fatty acid salts, produced of a chemical reaction between sodium alkali and fats. When it comes to fats, I use only vegetable oils and butters. Most of the time, I don't use any essential oils since I make herbal oil infusions and tinctures, which in addition to giving the soap its color, also saturates the soap with the natural aroma of the plant. Using only natural ingredients gives such a wide spectrum of colors and scents that I didn't have interest in using artificial fragrances at any point of my soap making. First, I dreamed of a studio in an attempt to separate my home and working space. I just needed my little private corner where I could dive into the process of soap making. Last winter, I went to see one rental space. Back then, the closest route from my home was through the so-called ice road, crossing a frozen river. From the first moment I entered, I knew this was my place. The moving day was in June 2023. Starting almost from scratch, I didn't have any equipment to furnish a professional soap making studio. I started bringing in the few things I already had. Most urgently, I needed a bigger sink to wash all the tools and containers used in the process of soap making. I asked people in one Facebook group if someone had old sinks to give for the workshop, and surprisingly, we got some offers of discarded sinks. I chose one that had already ended up as trash. It was in a relatively good condition and just needed a little rinse. I washed it with my soap at the carpet washing spot where water comes directly from the river. It was ready to go to the studio now. It only needed a desk to hold it. My husband Martin is skillful in many things, including woodwork. He decided to give a new life to these pallets that he found thrown away. Look how beautiful the wood is underneath. It was a miracle to see how we were managing to create this sink completely zero waste with a total cost of €5 for the screws and nails. Meanwhile, I was arranging soap classes at the Adult Education Center of Rovaniemi. That experience gave me the idea that my studio could be a place not only for soap production, but also for offline activities such as workshops, lectures, and maybe a little walk-in shop with certain opening hours. Now the time has come. After more than 3 years of experimenting, learning, and making lots of soap, I decided to open my own studio. Meanwhile, the summer came also to the north. I have lots of work to do, and the days feel endless since the sun doesn't set at all. Being an entrepreneur is a whole new world to me. During this period, it is easy to get lost in time. On the way home, sometimes I go for a refreshing swim, even if it's midnight, just to let the water rinse all my worries away. This is what the surroundings of my studio look like in the summer, and it's such a gift to be cycling to work through these postcard views. Regardless of all the mess and stress, I started falling in love with my morning routine. While worrying about finding a plant picking place further away from town, I went for a walk and found a secret garden. It happened to be very close to my studio, where all the plants I needed were like on a botanical exhibition. That was a true miracle that made me pinch myself several times for confirmation that it wasn't a dream. I didn't waste time and collected the last dandelions of the season to make soap out of them. There are different approaches in soap making, but the cold process technique is my favorite, although sometimes I make hot process soaps or work in combining different techniques. The beauty of the cold process is that the color and scent will keep changing throughout the whole life of the soap. and similar to wine and cheese, the soap needs time to mature. Cold processed soap is best to be used after 4 to 6 weeks or even a year of maturing. This same slow process of maturing has been happening with my dream of opening a soap workshop and starting this YouTube channel. The first step is to separate the green parts from the fresh dandelions. This way the soap will have beautiful earthy yellow color. The second step is infusing different oils with fresh dandelions and putting them in a warm place for a couple of hours. The next day I continue by carefully separating the dandelions from the oils. The last step is to mix all the infused oils with a solution of dandelion tea and alkali. I don't know if the soap will be part of our first summer collection yet, but I decided to name it Midnight Sun, as its color will stay to remind me of these magical polar days in my secret garden. Thank you for watching my first YouTube video. This was an introductory chapter to the story about my journey as a soap maker, and these are the first few steps of it that I wanted to share with you. The next chapter will tell a story of one Arctic warrior, a plant that has a lot to do with my own story. This plant is called marsh labrador tea, wild rosemary, or in Finnish, Suopursu.